Hi there, this is the Practice Chapter 5 test, and I am Mr. Jansen, the Magnificent. So away we go. If we take a look at this first one, it's asking us to find the slope. And when we're given two ordered pairs, there's two ways we can go about doing this. We can either use our slope formula, which is, remember, the y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over the x sub 2 minus x sub 1. I'll do that way first, so I'm going to take the second y value. My second y value is the 2, and I subtract the first y value, which is the negative 8, over the second x value, which is the 3, minus the first x value, which is the negative 2. And now I just have to be careful with my signs here. Remember, subtracting negatives like adding the opposite. Subtracting is like adding the opposite. So that's going to give me a 10 over a 5, which equals a 2. The other way to approach this is doing your change in y over change in x. For the change in y, I just look at what y was and now what it's become. Y was a negative 8, now it's a positive 2. That means it's gone up 10 units, so I write down a positive 10. Then when I look at the x's, x was a negative 2, now it's a positive 3. It's gone up 5 units, so I write down a positive 5, which again gives me the positive 2. So my slope here is 2. For number 2, I could write down the ordered pairs here and approach it the same way I did as number 1. But since it's graphed, I'm going to look at it as rise over run. And I always go left to right when I do this. I start at the point from the left and I travel to the point to the right. Let me try that again. My line was just a little bit off. And now I just have to count. If I started at that first point and I went down, I count how many units that is. I go down 6 units. Okay, so I write it down as a negative 6. That's my rise. And then my run, I count how far over I have to go, which is a positive 3. So I go over a 3. So now slope is rise over run. I rose negative 6. I ran 3. And when I divide those, it gives me a negative 2. So my slope for this second one is a negative 2. Okay? In number 3, it's asking me to find the x and y intercepts. Remember, when we're looking at a graph and we want to find x and y intercepts, it's just where it crosses the x-axis for our x-intercept, where it crosses the y-axis for our y-intercept. So here I can see that it crosses the x-axis at negative 5. So my y-intercept is a negative 5. And you can write it as just a negative 5. Or if you want, let me rewrite that a little bit cleaner. You can write it as an ordered pair as negative 5, 0. Okay, it's nice to think of it as an ordered pair, especially when we're referring back to our graph. And then the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. And here it looks like it crosses the y-axis at a positive 4. So my y-intercept is positive 4. But again, that's the ordered pair 0, 4. And the other nice reason to look at it as an ordered pair is when we look at number 4 and we're doing this algebraically, remember the x-intercept is when y equals 0, and I can see that from my ordered pair. The y-intercept is when x equals 0, and I can see that from my ordered pair. So in number 4, when it asks us to find this from the equation, the x-intercept is when y equals 0. So I'm just going to plug a 0 in for y. And I'm going to solve for x. So here I get a 2x minus 0 equals a negative 18, which is just a 2x equals a negative 18, which now I divide each side by the 2, and I find out that x equals a negative 9. So my y-intercept again is my x-intercept is negative 9, but again, that's the ordered pair negative 9, 0. Okay, I plugged a 0 in for y, got a negative 9 out for x. To find the y-intercept, I just have to plug a 0 in for x this time. So if I have 2 times 0, minus 6y equals a negative 18. And I simplify this. That's going to be a 0 minus 6y equals a negative 18. So I've got a negative 6y equals a negative 18. I divide each side by the negative 6. And I find out that y equals a positive 3. So my y-intercept is a positive 3, which again is the ordered pair 0, 3. So again, the x-intercept is when y equals 0. The y-intercept is when x equals 0, and then I just solve for each. In number 5, it's asking us to write the equation of the line. And remember, the two things I need to write the equation of the line are the slope and the y-intercept. So for my slope, since it's telling me that this is that our line is going to be parallel to the line y equals negative x plus 1. Remember, parallel lines have the same slope. So I look at the slope of this line. The slope of this line is a -1, which means the slope of my line, since it's parallel, is going to be the same. So my slope is also going to be a -1. And now to find the y-intercept, I start with a fresh y equals mx plus b, because that's the form of my equation. I want to solve for b, which means I need to plug something in for m, I need to plug something in for x, and I need to plug something in for y. M is the -1, b is the thing I'm solving for, and the x and a y value that are given to me are right here. This ordered pair is an xy value. The 2 is an x value, the 1 is a y value, so I plug each of those in. I plug the 2 in for x, I plug the 1 in for y. And now I just have to solve for b. This is going to give me a -2 plus b. I'm going to go ahead and add the 2 to each side. And I find out that b equals a 3. But I'm not finished yet. I have to actually write my equation, so that's going to be a y equals -1x plus 3. And then I could clean this up a little bit and just call it a -x plus 3. I find the slope, I find the y-intercept, I plug them into slope-intercept form. In number 6, I'm essentially doing the same thing, and the only thing that varies here is how we find the slope or the y-intercept. For this one, it's telling me that I'm perpendicular to the line y equals a 2/3 x minus 3, and the slope of this line is the 2/3. So the slope of our line is going to be the opposite reciprocal because they're perpendicular. So opposite means I change the sign. Reciprocal means I flip the fraction. So instead of a positive 2/3, it's going to be a -3/2. And now to find the y-intercept, I do the same thing. I start with a fresh y equals mx plus b. And I plug in what I know. I know the slope is a -3/2. I just need an x and a y value to plug in so I can solve for b. And once again, they've given me an x and a y value here. The 4 is the x value. The -2 is the y value. And now I just need to simplify this. This is a -2 equals -3/2 times 4 is going to give me a -6. And now to solve this, I just have to add the 6 to each side. So I add 6 to each side, and I find out that b equals a +4. So that's my b value. I still have to write the equation of my line. That's going to be a y equals -3/2 x plus 4. And that's it. Number 7, once again, we're doing this same thing. We're finding the slope, we're finding the y-intercept, and we're plugging it in. This time they gave us 2 points, and anytime I have 2 points and I want to find the slope, I just use my slope formula. You can either use the change in y over change in x, or the y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. I'm going to do the second method since that's what most people are familiar with, so the -5 minus the 2 over the 3 minus the -1. And when you're doing it this way, just be careful with your signs here. In the denominator, this is like plus a positive. Remember, subtracting is adding the opposite, so I get a -7. In fact, I could change this to adding the opposite. That's -5 plus a -2, so that's a -7 over a +4. So my slope is a -7/4. Now to find my b value, once again I start with a fresh y equals mx plus b. I plug in what I know, the -7/4. I just need an x and a y value to plug in, which they give me. They give me 2 of them. All right, I'm going to use one of these. I'm just going to use the first one, so I'm going to use this first ordered pair. So I'm going to plug the -1 in for x. I'm going to plug the 2 in for y. And now I just need to solve for b. So when I solve this one, I get 2 equals, that's going to be a +7/4 plus b. And now from here, I could subtract the 7/4 from each side. I then have to get common denominators. If you're worried about dealing with that, remember we can get rid of the fraction by multiplying everything by the common denominator of 4. Over here, it's going to give me an 8. Over here, I have to distribute this 4. So a 4 times a 7/4 is going to give me a 7. 4 times b is a 4b. And now this should be a pretty simple equation to solve. I subtract the 7 from each side. That's going to leave me with a 1 equals 4b. And now I divide each side by the 4. And I'm running out of space. But now I can see that b equals 1 divided by 4. I'm just going to leave as a fraction. It's a 1/4. So my b value is a 1/4. And now I just need to write the equation of my line. So that's going to be y equals a -7/4 x plus 1/4. And that's it. Okay? Number 8 asks us to make a scatter plot, draw a best fit line, write a prediction equation, and predict the last value. So again, this last value is the thing we're going to be predicting. I'm going to start off by drawing the scatter plot, and I just need to scale this appropriately. It looks like the age starts at 15 and goes to somewhere around 35. So here I'm going to start with the 15 out a little bit. So I'll do 15, 20, 25, 30, and 35. Okay, gives me all the ages I need. And now the plotting the wisdom measured in Smarties, which is hilarious, by the way. I'm going to go ahead and plot that over here. I've got to start somewhere around a 16. I'm going to start at 15, 25, 35, 45, 55. And now I just have to plot each of these things. I'll plot them in red so we can see them. 15, 16 is right around here. 20, 23. 25, 31. So I'm just plotting each of these ordered pairs on my graph. 30, 40. Then the last one, 35, 49. Okay, so I can see now that this has a positive correlation and it looks pretty linear. So now I can come up with a prediction equation. The first way I'm going to show you how to do this is using the graphing calculator. So let me pull my calculator up here. And when we do this, remember the first thing we do is we hit the Stat button. So I hit Stat, which brings me to this menu, and then I hit Edit. And now I have list 1 and list 2. Remember, if there are things in your list, we can clear those by going up to the top so that L1 is highlighted, hit the clear button, and then go back down into your list. Okay. For list 1, I'm going to punch in my X value. Okay. I don't punch in the 50 because I don't have that value yet. And now I punch in my Y values. So now again, my lists are even. I've got my X and my Y values punched in. I go back to Stat. So I hit the Stat button again. This time I'm going to calculate since I've already entered my list. And what I want here, the best fit line is a linear regression, which is number 4. So if you go down to number 4 and hit Enter. And now once again, I have to hit Enter again, or on the TI-84s, I have to scroll down and hit Calculate. So I tell it to calculate this thing. And it gives me my equation as y equals ax plus b, which is really mx plus b. So essentially what it's giving me here is the slope of 1.66 and a y-intercept of negative 9.7. So my equation would be y equals the 1.66 x minus the 9.7, if I remember. And now from here, I can use that to make a prediction. I can plug the 50 in. Once again, I'm just going to use my calculator to do that. So I've got 1.66 times the 50, and then minus the 9.7. And that's going to give me a pretty accurate prediction of a 73.3. So a 73.3